Can I get 2 medium cherry sundaes? And is it possible to get a pup cup?
Yeah.
That's perfect.
No, that's
Awesome.
it. Thank you. What did you hear? Did you hear pup cup? You did, didn't you? Oh, you silly boy. Morrie dog is being a silly fella. Hello. What are you gonna get? What does Morrie get? What is Morrie going to get? Yeah, is Morrie going to get a pup cup? This is Morrie and his pup cups. Oh my goodness. No. You can't eat the lid there, buddy. Here, let's put it down here where you can get a hold of it. There, did you enjoy that pup cup? Was that good? Poof! Gone. Just like that. Well, thanks for joining us on this episode. We made granola last week, and so now we're gonna make something to go with it.
Yes.
Are you ready for some homemade yogurt?
Yes.
But not just homemade yogurt, which we've been making for years.
Yes.
I've developed fruit-flavored yogurt. This is my original.
Yeah.
So
It's not an original concept.
no, concept's been around for ages, but I just wanted to see if I could do something like this.
Yes.
Do you have a particular flavor you would like out of the gate?
Mango.
Mango. Okay, there you go. Now we know what we're making, mango yogurt. And your interview segment today, what are you doing?
I'm going to be interviewing a very particular person.
Mm-hmm.
He's very close to me.
Morrie, you're being interviewed.
He has more words than Morrie.
Uh,
A tremendous amount of words. I'm going to be interviewing you. I'm going to
why?
corral you.
Because
Because you're part of the team.
Oh, because I keep dragging you down for taste tests.
Well, there's that.
Okay. Well, this will be interesting.
Yes, it is. It's going to be, yeah, because you know how to talk. It's still cold out. I'm sitting here with Steve, my
Hello.
hubbins,
Yeah. In our shop.
in our shop.
Notice
that
I said
we-
our shop.
Oh, it's definitely ours. So I'm going to be asking you a bunch of questions about our trip and the preps.
Okay.
Now, we started preparing, talking about this. Well, it was definitely pre-COVID, but after our 2016 big jaunt.
Well, this is something that you've been talking about for as long as I've known you, of wanting to go off and do one of these big trips. And I think you and your friend from school actually had been planning this kind of thing. So for as long as I've known you, you have talked about doing like a big North American trip. And in fact, before we were married, you bought one of those month-long, was it called Ameripass or something?
Yeah, Greyhound
Greyhound.
Ameripass.
Got
That's
on a
2
bus
weeks of
and-
my life.
Yeah, and took
Well,
off.
until the September 1st.
So, yeah, this is something that's been in the talking phases for a long time, but we did the test in 2016 to see if we liked it, and came back and felt that this was the best holiday that we had ever done. So yeah, let's get serious about this. But the big thing about that, we weren't as old then as we are now. And even with that, within a week of that holiday, I was finding it increasingly difficult to get dressed in the tent.
I was good for 22 days, and that was it.
And this is what we said. We would love to do another trip like this, but
Yeah,
no more tents.
yeah. It was in Ohio, a rest stop that I wanted to take a pressure washer to the table. And we started chatting about what we wanted to have. I said, I want a bed that stays set up and a table that stays set up, and you wanted a washroom because of our age, which I totally...
Yeah, getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, which is just part of who I am now, and then having to take a flashlight and wander over to the, facilities, it just got real old real fast. So,
Oh, remember southern Indiana? The humidity was absolutely crazy, and we were the only tent. So they hadn't mowed the tent area.
you were about to say plowed the tent area, which is exactly what it was like. Oh my gosh.
The grass was at least 8 inches
Yeah.
and absolutely soaked just from humidity. And the midnight walk, I wanted to stay in the washroom for the rest because I didn't want to go back.
And the water in that, I don't know why, because it was just humidity, but it smelled like swamp water. And we ended up throwing our running shoes away.
Oh, that's right.
After that day, it was just like, we can't even be in the same room as these runners. And so
Never mind in the same car.
we ended up in one of those like Kmart or something. I can't remember what it was. A little store just to get new runners to get us through the rest of the trip. But yeah, those were some moments. I mean, they're great memories. We had a blast, but it really came down to we want to do this again.
Yes.
But not in a tent. The following year, we bought the bigger tent.
Because I thought, well, maybe not a trailer, because the vehicle we had at the time could only tow 2,000 pounds tops.
Yeah.
That's fully loaded. And then the next year we got Morrie, and so I'm thinking, well, maybe not a trailer, maybe just a larger tent where we could stand up. Unfortunately, the tent wasn't quite what we thought because it was net on top. And it was cold.
Yeah, it was cold, especially when we were camping in the mountains. But the other thing is the walls weren't very thick. And Morrie gets very startled at the craziest of things. And, like fireworks, thunder, those kinds of things just set him right off. And there was something at that campsite that time.
Someone set off fireworks.
And he's trying to get out of the tent. And we thought, okay, we're going to need something that's got at least some stronger walls. We're going to pull this off. So yeah. So hence the chatting about this has been a long time. This trip was planned that we would go the year that you retired.
So I guess you're excited about this?
Yeah, I'm getting excited. I mean, there's parts of me that are getting quite nervous about it. I mean, the reason that we decided to do this interview out in the wood shop was because this is one of the things that I'm going to have a lot of difficulty leaving behind.
Yes.
We had thought that in the early phases of this, well, why don't we get a toy hauler and convert the garage where you would normally keep your ATV or your motorcycles or whatever, why don't we convert that over to a wood shop and bring one of our lathes, small lathe, some tools, and do something like that. And so at one of the RV shows a couple of years ago, we took a look at the toy haulers and realized that great for garage, but they're not sealed. Like there's space between the doors and the under vents and all this stuff. And we thought, oh my gosh.
We'd be coated with sawdust.
Yeah, we get in there and start sanding and we're going to be living in a sawdust factory. And so we really realized that was, as much as it would have been kind of cool, not exactly what we wanted. Also the fact that those rigs are quite big and you're taking up a lot of space for the garage. We found that unless you get a really, really big unit, it wasn't going to be in the cards to have a lot of living space, as the garage takes up a lot. So the more we thought about it, we thought, okay, well, what are the nice to haves? What are the need to haves? What are the hobbies that I can take with me? Because woodworking and wood turning is only one hobby. It's not the only hobby I have. I love cooking. as you may have noticed watching this channel. I like making sausages and bread and things like that. And those are also very important hobbies to me. And those are things that we can take along. But being away from my woodworking and wood turning for that period of time, that is one of the things that I am concerned about.
I would like you to describe the process of searching and finally finding and buying an RV.
I mean, the search really started in earnest, I'm going to say 4 years ago for Libby, when she got addicted to watching travel videos. And she's got some favorites that she would watch all the time. And frequently she would say, hey, watch this, take a look at this. My in earnest started about 2 years after yours, where I would look at some of these rigs, but what I was more interested in was, how are we going to pull this? Being a farm kid, I knew what it was to be hauling a big hay wagon and those kinds of things. So I knew that the truck was going to be important. So my research was, what do you buy first, the RV or the truck? Everything that I came across said, get the truck first, and then you know what kind of rig that you can get. So as far as the living space was concerned, I wasn't as concerned about that, mostly because the things that I needed to be happy in whatever trailer it was going to be was you and Morrie. As long as I had you and Morrie, I'm going to be happy. So I left a lot of the actual searching up to Libby. But there we are, and I'm excited about it. It's a nice looking unit. I feel good in it. I feel comfortable. The chairs are comfortable. The kitchen is just the size that I need. And I think we're gonna have a lot of fun in that one. Now today I'm making flavored yogurt. It will be a mango yogurt. And what I'm going to need is a pot big enough to hold 1 quart or 1 liter of milk. In the back here, I have a bowl with some ice. I will be putting some water in that in a little while. That's going to be for cooling down the yogurt once it's up to temperature. Need some kind of a thermometer, and in this case, I have one that has my upper and lower temperatures already put in. I want to take the yogurt up to 180 degrees, so I set this for 178 to give me a warning. I'm going to bring it down to 112 degrees, so this gives me a warning when it's on the low end, so that I'm close and I've got things going. This is the milk I'll be using. It's a 3.25% milk fat. I will be using some culture. This is a culture with probiotics in it. It is from the same company that makes my Incubator, and I will need an incubator, and this just keeps the temperature at the constant rate that it needs. For the mango flavoring, I'll be using some frozen mango, a little tiny bit of maple syrup, some citric acid, some cornstarch, and some dehydrated mango, which I did a couple of weeks ago. Milk goes in the pot. Temperature probe is going to be put in. I really like these little guys that clip on the side of the pot, if you can get them open. There we go. And this is just going to hold the thermometer in the milk. I'm going to be setting this at simmer, and we'll be waiting for this to come up to the temperature that I need. Right now the milk is just heating slowly. This incubator uses a water bath, so this container is what the yogurt's going to go into, and then it's going to go inside the incubator. And in order to get this with the right amount of water, I just hold the container down and pour some water in the side until it comes up too close to the top. So I'm just going to let that water heat up, and it is on, and we'll just let that go. The setup now is to get the cold water ready to go. I just put a few ice cubes into some cold water. I just want this water to be quite cool, not freezing cold. I'm not going to be wrapping this in ice cubes, but I'm now just waiting for this to get to 180, and I'm going to stand here and watch it. And when it gets done, I will take the pot and put it into this cool water. And there we go, 180 degrees. Heat goes off, and the pot gets placed into some cool water. Now at this point, I'm just wanting to get this down to 112 degrees. So again, I've set the low temperature for 113 just to let me know that it is there. And occasionally over the next hour or two while this is cooling down, I will come and check this water temperature. And if I'm noticing that it's taking on more of the heat from the pot than it should be, I'll add 3 or 4 or 5 ice cubes to it just to make sure that the milk continues to cool at a nice gradual pace. Okay, once I have cooled the yogurt down to the correct temperature, I am going to add the starter. I'm going to sprinkle this on the top. So this is 5 grams for 1 liter of milk. I'm just going to let that set for 2 minutes. After the 2 minutes is up and this is reconstituted, I'm just going to gently whisk that in so that the culture is finely blended with the yogurt, or with the milk. It's not yogurt yet. It will be yogurt very soon. Okay, this is a clean, sanitized pot. And the milk is going to go in there. This has been preheated, so we're going to place the container with the milk into the incubator and put the lid on it and leave it alone. Now, depending on how thick you want your yogurt and how tangy you want your yogurt is going to determine how long you leave it in the incubator. For me, it's usually between 4 to 6 hours. In the meantime, I need to get the fruit ready. Okay, for the filling, the fruit, I'm going to be taking about a cup of mango. This can be fresh or frozen. I have frozen on hand, so that's what I'm going to be using. I'm going to be putting in 1 teaspoon of cornstarch. I am going to be putting in 2 teaspoons of sweetener of your choice. I've used honey with great success. I will be using maple syrup today, which I've also used with great success, and that was a little more than 2 teaspoons. I'm going to be using a very small amount of citric acid. If you happen to be fortunate enough and have one of these sets of the little mini spoons, it is a pinch. It's a 1/16 of a teaspoon of citric acid. Not much. And then we are going to blend that. The fresh works a little better than the frozen in this case because it's ready to go. And if we end up with the odd little chunk of fruit in there, that is fine. This is pretty well blended. I'm just going to put this now on a medium-low heat and bring it up to a boil. just to a boil. Okay, once I have this at a gentle boil, I'm just going to turn this down to simmer and let it simmer for about 10 minutes just to thicken up a little tiny bit. I didn't put a lot of cornstarch in there. It's just enough to give it a little bit of thickness, but not crazy. Now at this point, it's going to add a little bit to the thickening process. I'm also going to add my dehydrated mango and just stir that in. This is going to give us some reconstituted little pieces of mango in the final product. So those will soften up in this 10-minute process. And then once this is finished, I will put it in the fridge and we're going to let that cool down until it is nice and cold. I'm also going to do a little shout out for my friend Lisa. She runs the YouTube channel Cheese 52. This is her first book, which just came out earlier this year. And in here is a fantastic recipe for strained yogurt. That's not what I'm making today, but I have done this strained yogurt, very similar to the Greek yogurt that you would find in a store. So if you're looking for a very straightforward recipe for making homemade yogurt, plus a whole lot of other very cool cheese recipes, highly recommend Confident Cheese Making by Lisa Peterson. Okay, we have simmered our mango filling. It has a nice thickness to it now, and that's about as far as I'm going to take that. This is now going to be put in the fridge until it's cold. By that time, the yogurt will be almost ready. It's going to go in the fridge until it's cold, and then I'll be mixing this with the fresh yogurt. Okay, this has been in the incubator for a while. Oh, it's very nice. Thick yogurt. Looks great. Now, all I will be doing is taking this and putting it in the fridge overnight, and then I'll be adding the fruit blend to this once it has cooled down. And then I'll leave it in the fridge for another day or so just for everything to come together. And then we will start having this with some of our homemade granola that we made the other day. Hooray! All right, well, I've left these in the fridge overnight, and the yogurt is beautifully firmed up. It looks great. And our fruit, it looks fantastic. So I'm just going to be blending these two and not doing a really big mix. I just want to fold the fruit into the yogurt. So again, this was the mango. And you can see the little chunks of mango that ended up. So this is dehydrated mango that has been reconstituted, and I find it just gives a really nice texture to this whole affair. And then again, this will go back in the fridge for another day just to allow the fruit and the yogurt to come together and to firm up a little bit. There, that's going to be just enough. And there we have it. Yogurt with mango. All right, now the taste test. I dragged you down here for a taste test.
Yes.
This is my mango yogurt. Choose your instrument of destruction. Okay. Mango yogurt.
Heavenly.
Is that good?
Really good. Really mango-ish.
Now you noticed the little chunks in there.
Well, you have to have chunks.
are firmer because it's made with the dehydrated mango. This is my standard recipe. This is a thinner yogurt, but with the dehydrated fruit in there, which reconstitutes throughout the process. You end up with these really nice, tasty pieces. So, and I did give a shout out to Lisa's book earlier. This is not her recipe. The recipe that she has created is a much thicker yogurt. It is very reminiscent of the Greek style. Libby and I use this one because seldom do we ever just sit there and eat yogurt. It's usually always mixed with granola. And we like the thinner one because before we started using yogurt, we just had our granola with milk. And then we converted over to starting using yogurt. So there's kind of that balance. We like the thinner yogurt because it's a little bit easier to mix. But you're good with this?
Yes, it's really good.
Yeah.
Morrie likes it too.
Yeah, Morrie likes anything that we feed him, don't you, buddy? So the standard recipe again: 1 cup of pureed fruit, whatever you want. You're using a small bit of sweetener, liquid sweetener, honey. I use maple syrup in this one, agave nectar, any of those kinds of things you can use. There's a small bit of citric acid in here, as well as some cornstarch just to help with the thickening process. Not a huge amount, just a little bit. And it works for any type of fruit. We did our last batch with strawberry, this one with the mango, and it works. And it's a really nice.
This one works better than the strawberries did. Taste-wise.
Oh yeah, it's really nice. Okay, and that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed. Let's get cooking. We pick up our RV in just a matter of a couple of weeks now. We are getting very excited. Dude, I am running out of treats for you.
Because
nervous.
of the snow.
Yeah, we're
Because
really
it's 2 hours away from us.
really hoping that weather
which would
doesn't.
mean 4 hours.
Really hoping that the weather does a major shift here in the next little while, because
Yeah.
this is going to be pretty hard to be hauling a trailer around. But I think we're getting very, very excited about this, and as mentioned, a little bit nervous, a little bit apprehensive. Going to be leaving a few things behind, but I think this is going to be very good for all kinds of things: mental health, physical health, emotional health.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, we've made quite the indent in the house. Now it looks like a bomb went off. And we took a Wednesday. Wednesday we went out to the dump and took, was it 150 kilograms?
Yeah, something like that.
Of stuff. And we dropped off stuff for Goodwill, and the house doesn't look like we even touched it.
Yeah, a lot of work, but it's going to be worth it, and we're getting very excited about doing this. So
Yeah.
hang in there. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode.